What's going on, muscle monsters? Lyle Gonzalez here, and in this video we're going to talk about how to bulk up without getting fat. And the reason you don't want to get fat is very simple. The more fat you put on, the better you become, or the more efficient you become at storing body fat, and the less efficient you become at building muscle. So it's imperative that you at least try to stay as lean as possible while you're bulking. Now, obviously, there will be fat gain. This is totally fine. And in fact, if you're not gaining fat, then you're probably not maximizing the amount of muscle that you build, despite how contradictory that may sound. Okay? Another thing is that if you put on too much fat too quickly, you are going to put yourself in a position where now you have to cut a lot sooner, right? Someone who is bulking up slowly and focusing on quality mass, okay, is going to be able to stay in a lean mass phase for much longer than someone who's just doing like a dirty bulk and not really caring about how much fat they put on. Okay, so that person who puts on fat pretty quickly is then going to have to diet for much longer, and then when they bulk back up, it's basically a vicious cycle of little gains, right? Only to spend more time cutting, and then over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, they haven't actually maximized the amount of muscle that they could build. Whereas someone who's a little bit more strategic, who's focusing on quality mass, will be able to build muscle for a longer period of time. Their cutting phases will be shorter, and so over the course of 1, 2, or 3 years, they will have put on much more muscle mass than someone who's just bulking and cutting aimlessly. So the first thing we need to understand is that there is a limit to how much muscle we build. Just because we're hitting it hard in the gym and we're gaining weight doesn't mean that we're putting on muscle mass. More weight does not mean more muscle mass. There is a finite limit to the amount of muscle our body can build. So in year one, right, we know that we can put on about 20 to 25 pounds of muscle. That breaks down to 1.6 to 2 pounds of muscle per month. So if you can only put on 2 pounds of muscle per month and you're gaining 5 pounds a month, chances are you're putting on more fat than you need to. Now this breaks down to about 0.4 to 0.5 pounds of muscle per week. Okay, so about half a pound of muscle per week in the first year. Now, you might be saying to yourself, okay, so I should just aim to gain about half a pound per week, and that will ensure that I'm maximizing muscle growth without getting fat. No. See, the thing is that when you are gaining weight, not all of it is going to be muscle. So if you only gained half a pound for that week, chances are you didn't build as much muscle as you possibly could, okay? Because some of that weight is not going to be muscle tissue. All right, so what I recommend doing is aiming for about twice as much as you can actually gain. And what I mean by that is if you're in the first year of training, rather than aiming to gain half a pound a week, I want you to gain closer to a pound a week, especially within the first 6 months. And then when we jump to year 2, when your muscle gains have slowed down a bit and you're only able to put on a quarter of a pound of muscle per week, rather than going up to a pound a week again, we might start aiming for about half a pound, right? So twice as much as our potential muscle growth is. See here at the bottom, we've got year 3 where the gains have really slowed down. You're only going to be able to put on about 0.1 pounds. So you might only aim to gain about a quarter of a pound a week, and then that kind of just gets lower and lower as we progress, right? Or the deeper we get into our training. So how to ensure that we aren't gaining too much weight? It's very simple. It's a strategy that I talk about all the time, but we'll break it down here, okay? So you might think, okay, I'm gonna weigh myself this Monday, and then next Monday I'll weigh myself again and see how much weight I've gained. Wrong, because our body weight tends to fluctuate a lot from day to day. So it's possible that today you weigh 150 pounds and then next Monday you weigh 149.8, but you are actually gaining weight. Let me explain. The way that we should be tracking our weight is through averages rather than from one day to the next. rather than from Monday to Monday. So if we are consuming X amount of calories every single day for a week and we're tracking our body weight every single day, at the end of the week we can get an average of our weight. Okay, that's the number that you want to go off of, not Monday to Monday or Tuesday to Tuesday. We want the average, the weekly average. Okay, that weekly average is what's going to tell you more precisely how much weight you are gaining. So if you track your calories this week and you're weighing yourself every single day, at the end of the week you get an average. You do that for the next week, you get another average. You can compare. Okay, you can see if you are gaining more weight than you need to. So if you're gaining more than a pound, for example, in your first year, right, it's not a big deal. I don't want you to kind of start manipulating your calories and try to cut that bit of extra fat that you might have put on. I want you to completely ignore it, but just continue to stay on track. Continue aiming for no more than that 1 pound per week. And sometimes it'll be slightly less and sometimes it'll be slightly more. As long as you're within the ballpark, chances are you're going to maximize your growth throughout that entire year. Now let's talk about macronutrient distribution, right? Because when we're talking about building muscle, right, not just gaining weight, we want to ensure that we are eating enough calories, yes, but also making sure that we're getting them in the proper macronutrient ratio. So for one, we want to make sure that we're getting at least 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. So if you're 150 pounds, you want to at least aim for 150 grams of protein. The next thing is we need to ensure that we are getting about 30% of our daily calories in fat, and then the rest can be carbs, right? And that's where you can kind of adjust as you're growing, right? So whenever you stall out, maybe you didn't gain that half a pound or that 1 pound, then you can increase your calorie intake in the form of carbs. So you might add another 25 grams of carbs, for example. And then you can continue tracking your weight and adjusting as necessary. But as long as you can stay within the numbers that I've outlined here, right? So as long as you're gaining 0.5, so about half a pound to a pound per week in your first year, chances are you're in a good place. You're not putting on too much fat too quickly. In year 2, if you're gaining a quarter of a pound to half a pound a week, you're in good shape. Again, not too much, right? But you also want to aim slightly above what your maximum amount of muscle is. So if the maximum amount of muscle is a quarter of a pound a week, then we want to still try to get slightly above that, because again, not all of the weight that you gain is going to be muscle. And then when we get to year 3, okay, we don't want to exceed about a quarter of a pound per week. All right, and then as you get further, year 4, year 5, year 6, that's when it really doesn't matter. At that point, you probably are better off just training at maintenance and recomping the entire time, because the rate of muscle growth is so slow that you may as well forget the whole bulking up thing and getting fat unnecessarily, because once you cut, you're essentially going to put on almost nothing. Okay, and that's why I recommend that once you're after year 3, it's probably a good idea to start eating at maintenance and kind of just recomping. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's how you're going to bulk up without getting fat. If there's anything I missed, let me know in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure to grab my book, Bulk Up Fast. I go over all of this in more detail, all right? All the science behind all this stuff too. So the book right now is free. All you have to do is cover the shipping. I've already paid for the book. So if you go to the link in my description, tell me where to send it, and then cover the small shipping fee, I'll send it to you anywhere in the world. This is not some small little pamphlet. This is over 230 pages of pure info. It's got the 90-day blueprint for you. It's got meal plans. It's got a bunch of other stuff that you can download once you get the book, right? There's a website in there you can go to anyway. So do that before I run out of those. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.